Good evening, one and all. We welcome you all to the international webinar series on holistic health, well-being, and sustainable development 2025, commemorating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, nation celebrating 77 years of independence and United Nations Sustainable Development Goals 2015 to 2030. Also commemorating Viksit Bharat at 2047 in collaboration with Sri Holistic Health Foundation India and Sri Research Institute Center for Arts, Sciences and Wellbeing. Before we start our sessions, let's take the blessings of Almighty.
कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शत्रुबुद्धिविनाशाय दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते दीपज्योतिर्नमोऽस्तुते शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः शुभं कुरुत्वं कल्याणम् आरोग्यं धनसम्पदः.
With the blessings of Almighty, we shall continue with today's commemorations. Today, we are celebrating World Zoonosis Day on 6th June every year. Sorry, 6th July every year. And today we are also commemorating World Rural Development Day. And other various commemorations. Today, as we are celebrating World Rural Development Day on 6th July every year, rural development and rural level empowerment has a global impact. In a gesture both symbolic and strategic, the General Assembly declared July 6th as World Rural Development Day, reaffirming its unwavering commitment to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. This declaration, steeped into the spirit of international solidarity, acknowledges the deep-rooted challenge of rural poverty and the necessity of addressing it as a precondition for achieving the broader goals of economic, social, and environmental sustainability. Drawing from a lineage of global declarations and resolutions, from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights to the Adidas Ababa Action Agenda, Ababa Action Agenda, the resolution seeks to shine a sustained light on the lives and struggles of those who till the soil, harvest the seas, and nurture the land in rural corners of the world. At its heart, the resolution confronts the disproportionate burden of poverty, hunger, and exclusion borne by rural communities, especially by women, indigenous peoples, and youth, whose resilience is too often overlooked. It emphasizes the vital roles these groups play in agriculture development, food security, and ecological stewardship, calling for their empowerment through access to land, decent work, and inclusion in decision making. By endorsing an integrated approach to rural development that embraces traditional knowledge, gender equality, and digital inclusion, the resolution envisions a future in which rural prosperity is no longer an elusive ideal but a shared goal achievement. So, the observances of Rural Development Day, as outlined, is not intended as a mere ceremonial gesture, but it as a catalyst for meaningful action. Government, civil society, international organizations, and academic institutions are invited to partake in the annual commemoration through concrete activities, policy dialogue, and grassroots initiatives with a clear emphasis on the voluntary contributions and locally driven strategies. The resolution entrusts the day with the power to elevate rural voices, galvanize development efforts, and renew the world's collective promise to leave no one behind, not even in the most remote and forgotten places of the earth. The importance of rural development isn't just about geography. It's about poverty, equity, food security, and sustainability. Poverty and inequality: 80% of the world's poorest people live in rural areas, earning less than $2.51 per day, 2.15 per day. 1 billion plus people face acute multidimensional poverty. Over half are children, UNDP 2024. Half of rural population lack health coverage, 22% versus 22% in urban areas as per DISA 2021. Coming to agriculture and food security, family farms produce 80% of the world's food as per FAO, and women make up 43% of the agricultural workforce, yet face barriers to land, credit, and tech. Coming to climate and connectivity, rural areas sit on the climate front line, enduring droughts, floods, and extreme heat. In 2024, 83% of the urban residents use the internet versus less than 50% in rural areas as per ITU 2024. So these challenges demand investment so that no one is left behind. UN Vision for Rural Development aligns with the 2030 agenda, and Addis Ababa Action Agenda calls for an integrated economic, social, and environmental approach, puts women and youth empowerment, especially land rights, front and center, promotes multi-stakeholder partnerships and knowledge exchange, encourages a voluntary funding model for observant activities. So priority themes include ending rural poverty and hunger, as majority of extreme poor live in rural areas, and actions such as social protection, land rights, nutrition-rich farming can be taken up. So climate resilient livelihoods, which is another priority theme, as rural areas face severe climate impacts, and suggested actions would be agroecology, drought-tolerant crops, and water management. Another area, digital and financial inclusion, connectivity unlocks services and markets, broadband, e-wallets, farmer data platforms are to be initiated and implemented. And coming to another priority, empowering women and youth, inclusion boosts productivity and equity. So inheritance rights, women-led cooperatives, digital skills are to be actioned. And finally, the infrastructure and services as roads, energy, and education transforms lives. So public-private partnerships, mobile clinics, mini grids, and so on should be implemented. So there are different ways to get involved for different stakeholders, like for governments are encouraged to develop rural data dashboards and allocate resources for essential infrastructure, helping to close development gaps in remote areas. UN agencies and development banks may support in the effort by hosting forums that explore financing solutions and inclusive land governance strategies. Girl civil society organizations and farmer groups can contribute by organizing community-led events, awareness campaigns, and discussions that bring rural perspectives into policy conversations. Universities have a key role in offering lectures, youth-led challenges, and innovative labs that explore practical solutions to rural development challenges. The private sector can play a vital part by introducing inclusive business models and establishing investment funds that support rural entrepreneurs and enterprises. The United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs will help coordinate global outreach and highlight success stories that demonstrate the power and potential of rural transformation. So, with fewer than 5 years remaining to realize the vision of sustainable development goals, the path ahead remains uncertain and fraught with fragility. In the narrowing window of opportunity, World Rural Development Day emerges as more than a date on the calendar. It's a global reckoning, a solemn pause to reflect and reorient. It calls upon the international community to ensure that rural communities, so often overlooked and understand, are not merely remembered but practiced firmly at the center of sustainable progress. So, the International Fund for Agriculture Development, IFAD, is a specialized United Nations agency and international financial institution dedicated to eradicating poverty and hunger in the rural areas of developing countries. By investing in rural people, IFAD helps them increase their incomes, improve food security, and build resilience, empowering communities to lead their own development and shape a more inclusive and sustainable future. Today is commemorated as World Zoonosis Day. Which is observed annually on every 6th of July. This day aims to shed light on diseases that originate in animals that can be transmitted to humans. In a study by the CDC, 60% of all existing infectious diseases are zoonotic, and at least 70% of emerging infectious diseases originate in animals. On July 6, 1885, French biologist Louis Pasteur successfully administered the first rabies vaccine to a little boy bitten by a rabid dog. The vaccine not only prevented the child from getting rabies, it saved his life. So, rabies is just one example of many zoonotic diseases. Avian influenza, Ebola, and the West Nile virus are some other examples that have been discovered over the years. Zoonotic pathogens can be viral, bacterial, or parasitic and can spread to humans through direct contact or indirectly through food, water, or environment. It may even spread through an intermediary species. It does not just originate from wild animals like bats or monkeys. It can also come from pets and farm animals. The use of antibiotics in animals raised for food increases the potential for drug research strains of zoonotic pathogens. That's why animals have an important role in zoonotic infections. As there are many types of zoonotic diseases, there are also many types of treatments such as antibiotics. Some practices can help prevent spread of foodborne zoonotic diseases like safe guidelines for animal care in the agriculture industry. Having access to clean drinking water and proper waste removal are effective ways to reduce the spread of diseases. Vaccinating household pets and maintaining proper hygiene, like washing your hands after close contact with animals, can also help. Protecting and managing the health of animals that live alongside humans is vital. When we prevent diseases in animals, we safeguard the health of people. So the Mosaic Esmona Code of Babylon shows the first written account of rabies causing death in humans and dogs in the West around 2300 BC. The rabies was first recorded. Ebola is discovered on September 29, 1976. It was named after the Ebola River in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The swine flu outbreak occurred in 2009. The CDC estimates that the global death toll due to H1N1 influenza is more than 284,000. The start of COVID-19 pandemic on January 30, 2020, World Health Organization declares the novel coronavirus outbreak as a public health emergency of worldwide concern. We can see that most of the pandemics, endemics, and endemics have occurred due to contact with animals, wild animals, especially because we are consuming meat and meat products and various related products, and we are not, because of that, in constant, we are spreading the infections from animals to humans. So researchers have found that bats carry the highest number of unknown pathogens that can infect humans, and many zoonotic viruses are there. Currently, there are over 250 known zoonotic viruses, but many more are waiting to be discovered. So, in a recent study from January to April 2021, rabies recorded the highest number of deaths at 88.31%. In a misconception that indoor pets don't need any rabies vaccinations, make sure your cat or dog gets their shots. Always keep their vaccination schedule up to date for everyone's safety. If you or someone you know have a high risk of exposure of rabies, like veterinarians or animal handlers, make sure to take extra care. Protect yourself and them by getting a pre-exposure rabies vaccination. So working at animal shelters can be challenging yet rewarding. The staff always welcomes extra help, whether it is in the form of donations or volunteering, to assist in the day-to-day duties. Vaccinating animals protects them as well as the people who spend time with them. It's 100% preventable disease. Tens of thousands of victims die every year. Asia and Africa have the most infections. Dogs are the main source for humans. They are the main source of rabies deaths, contributing up to 99% of all transmissions to humans. Thorough washing of a wound is important. Washing a wound from contact with a suspected rabid animal with soap and water may save a life. Almost half of the victims are children. Of those bitten by suspected rabid animals, 40% are children under 15 years old. Pet owners don't just provide food and shelter for their animals, it's also their responsibility to keep the animal and everyone around it safe, and vaccination is one way to do that. Keep an eye on the kids when they interact with animals. Be cautious. Don't assume that if an animal is friendly in the wild or indoors, it's safe to touch. All over the world, lives and livelihoods have been lost or altered by the effects of different zoonotic diseases like COVID. This day reminds us of them. So today is also commemorated as Virtually Hug a Virtual Assistant Day in US, which falls on July 6th every year. In this digital age, more and more jobs can be found outside the physical office. Companies big and small are embracing the non-traditional way of running their organization remotely. Staff now meet online instead of more traditional face-to-face. The day is dedicated to those who make a career out of making sure their client's business runs smoothly and virtually. Sir Isaac Pitman's invention of the shorthand method led to beginnings of the secretarial service industry. His secretarial school only accepted men until the invention of the typewriter. This allowed the entry of women into the industry, who dominated these jobs until men were completely eased out by 1930s. As technology progressed, typewriters gave way to word processing systems, telephones, and fax machines. With the dawn of the internet, business transactions could be made sitting thousands of miles away. This digital revolution ushered in the birth of virtual industry when Anastasia Bryce spoke with life coach Thomas Leonard and described the work she would perform for him as virtual assistants in 1996. She worked as full-time secretary from home using the internet to provide such services as personal assistance, administrative support, and travel planning. She called herself a virtual assistant, and this gave rise to emerging profession that continued today. A virtual assistant or VA provides services to the business remotely. They usually assign administrative and clerical tasks, but can also assist with other requirements. Some are skilled in bookkeeping, web design, social media management, and marketing. Some of them have specialized skills and not only perform duties related to those skills along with regular duty. Others specialize in an industry such as one who assists realtors. Virtual assistants can work for multiple companies or dedicate themselves to one employer. Many people are doing it as a side job too for some extra cash. The work arrangement is beneficial to both parties as business are free to engage with the VAs only to the degree they need. The VA has the opportunity to pursue their personal goals while earning from the home. With more and more services going online, the role of virtual assistant will grow in future. There is also commemorated as the Day of Dombria in Kazakhstan, which is celebrated on the first Sunday of July every year. This year it takes place on July 6th. A dombria is a pear-shaped, long-necked, two-stringed plucked musical instrument. It has frets and is played by strumming with the hand of plucking each string individually with an occasional tap on the main surface of the instrument. It is also referred to as dombira or dombra. The, the dombira was an integral part of nomad life, accompanying nomadic tribes as they traverse the steppes. There are 60 types of dombria on display. at the Atrai Local History Museum. Gudmangzi Sagitburgli, the Kazakh folk musician and composer, was known one of the greatest Dombra players and was a major influence on the development of Kazakh musical culture. His musical composition, Edai, was a hit locally and internationally. So Kazakh President Nursultan Nazarbayev signed a decree making the Day of Bombira an annual celebration in 2018. He introduced this day to instill appreciation, respect, and knowledge of national culture and tradition. The Dumbria is included in United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organizations (UNESCO) Intangible Cultural Heritage List, and it is a cultural tool to connect people to their historical roots and traditions. The Dumbria first appeared in the Middle Ages and an instrument similar to the Dumbria has existed in almost every Central Asian country. In 1989, researchers discovered today is also commemorated as Umbrella Cover Day in US, a day meant to celebrate the everyday thing. Find a new appreciation for your umbrella cover by celebrating Umbrella Cover Day on July 16th. This often overlooked part of an umbrella covers often find themselves in the back of closets and drawers or in the trash, forgotten and unused. Then we get a new umbrella and cycle repeats itself. These little sleeves, slip covers, cases, shirts, whatever they may be, deserve our recognition. Umbrella have been around for a long time. Ancient Egyptians used them for shade, and so did the Persians and Indians. In those days, umbrella were made of various materials, including straw, leaves, and various other materials, including leather, to appeal to wealthy, high status families, including powerful rulers. Even the Pope used a red and yellow umbrella called the umbraculum for shade. This design has been replicated in churches all over the world. While the ancient Greeks and Romans associated umbrella with femininity, they also covered massive colosseums with umbrella canopies called velarium, which were both rainproof and sunproof. Today is also commemorated as Take Your Webmaster to Lunch Day in US on 6th July. Is a day of vital importance, especially in the day and age of internet. We all have been there. You are running short on time, but the website keeps freezing, and if you don't get XYZ done on time, it's game over. This is where a webmaster can help you using complex programming languages and coding. A webmaster or a web developer can make surfing the internet for people like you and me easier and simpler. Webmaster not only train extensively, but they continue. learning and growing as professionals throughout their careers due to Today is also commemorated as National Patio Umbrella Day in US. We celebrate the heroes of summer on National Patio Umbrella Day. This outdoor accessory can be found in many a backyard, deck, or patio in the summer. Without umbrellas, our outdoor space would be far less enjoyable. They not only provide shade from the hot sun, keeping us cool, but also protect us from light summer showers. This day reminds us to be thankful for small conveniences that make our lives so much better. Today is also commemorated as National Hand Roll Day in US on July 6th every year, which is dedicated to a delicious Japanese hand roll presented by Sushi Nozawa Group, which has become a part of life and had a favorite delicacy of peoples around. There is also commemorated as National Air Traffic Control Day on July 6th in US, and we cannot be more excited. This day is held especially on this date because it is the anniversary of the Day of Air Traffic Control System, which was established in the US. Each year, the work, skill, and ingenuity of the men and women of the Federation, Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, are recognized and honored on this day. There is also commemorated as MHIP Day in India, which is celebrated on July 6th each year in Mizoram, India. MHIP stands for Mizo Hemchi Insuikwan Pal, which means binding women together. The MHIP is largest NGO in the Mizoram state and the only NGO dedicated to women's welfare. Through philanthropic social work and local advocacy, the MHIP uplifts the women of Mizoram and educates them on their rights. They also equip them with vocational skills and group courses to give Indian women a foundation of independence and a sense of feeling capable. MHIP Day applauds the organization's efforts as a champion for women's welfare. Today is also commemorated as Malawi Independence Day on Malawi on July 6th every year, also known as Republic of Malawi. This country is located in southwestern Africa and was formerly known as Nyasaland. Malawi gained independence from the United Kingdom in 1964. Until such time, it was under the colonial rule of the British. Although roads and train tracks were developed in the 1890s, this favored the Europeans more and left little improvement in the welfare of Africans whose land they exploit. Today is also commemorated as International Kissing Day, which is a type which is a perfect time on July 6th of the year to celebrate this simple yet powerful gesture. From French kissing and formal kiss on the cheek to kiss hello and a kiss goodbye. Kissing an age-old practice with significance that extends far beyond just romance. So International Kissing Day itself is not about French kissing your significant other, but to bring people closer in general, where culturally and personally it is accepted by the individuals. The main idea behind it was that so many people have forgotten the simple pleasures associated with kissing for kissing's sake, so opposed to kissing as mere social formality. So kissing can be enjoyable experience in and of itself and is an expression of love and intimacy. Today is also commemorated as Comoros National Day on July 6th. This day marks the day the country gained independence from France in 1975. It is a day highlighted by a presidential address and celebration that honor their cultures, such as showcasing their traditional dance, food, and music. Located in the Indian Ocean off the eastern coast of Africa, Comoros three islands, Grande Comore, Anjouan, and Moiety remains under French rule. Situated between Madagascar and the Mozambican coast, it's home to Mount Karthala, an active volcano that has erupted more than a dozen times in the past 2 centuries. While sand beaches line the coast, aromatic plants such as jasmine, lemongrass, and frangipani help earn their nickname. Fragrant Island, it is one of the world's poorest countries with an economy that relies on fishing and subsistence farming. Once it was vital in the Indian Ocean trade between Asia and East African ports like India and Japan. Both explorers and settlers have left their mark on the islands. Africa, Arabic, Malagasy, and French influences abound. Persians arrived as well, establishing Sunni Islam as the dominant religion. Today is also commemorated as Capital City Day in Kazakhstan, which is an official public holiday celebrated on July 6th. It was founded in 2009 and is held to honor Kazakhstan capital city, Nur Sultan, formerly known as Astana. The festival also falls on the birthday of former President Nuru Sultan Nazarbayev. On July 6, 1994, Kazakhstan Supreme Court Council passed a resolution relocating the country's capital from Almaty to Akmola on May 6, 1990. Akmola was renamed Astana and elevated to the status of capital city. On July 18, 2008, the government passed legislation declaring Capital Day a state holiday. There is also commemorated as Build a Scarecrow Day in US. On the first Sunday in July this year, the US celebrates it on July 6th. Farmers make scarecrows to protect their crops from unwanted animals and birds that may ruin their harvest. The custom spans back to ancient times when people European of origin in the West would leave straw mannequins that resembled people as a way to ward off the evil spirits who were thought to bring drought and famine. Farmers eventually built scarecrows that looked like people so that birds would be too afraid to approach the fields because it looked like people were working in them. This kept birds from eating the seeds they planted so that they could grow into crops that could be harvested and sold or eaten. Today is also commemorated as the anniversary of the coronation of King Mindaugas in Lithuania, which is observed on July 6th every year. The day is also known as Statehood Day and is considered a national holiday. Lithuanians remember for the first and only king of Lithuania, Mindaugas, a person who exceeded in his era in political strategy, mentally, and spiritual strength. In 2003, the 750th anniversary of his coronation was celebrated with a series of cultural events including operas, folk music, concerts, folk dances, parades, and festivals. Lithuanians, tourists, children, and adults joined such a grand celebration. Today is also commemorated as Shark Week from July 6 to 13, 2025 in US, which happens every year in July or August and takes place from July 6 to 13 this year. It's a yearly week-long grouping of shark-related show episodes, documentaries, and movies that airs on the Discovery Channel. Heaps of Americans grew up harboring a fascination with sharks that never stand still, ruthless killer instinct they embody. Discovery's week of programming has become traditional fare for a generation of would-be shark scientists, engaged filmmakers, and thrilling seekers. If you haven't seen it yet, don't miss this year's Shark Week. This week is also commemorated as Be Nice to New Jersey Week in US. For those of you who don't know, the first full week of July is Be Nice to New Jersey Week. This year it falls from July 6th to 12th. The state has been subject of ridicule as far back as the 1600s. Identity crisis jokes about the state splitting into two soon escalated witty jokes and remarks. The Lone Star Publications of humor's editor Lauren Burnett founded this day in 1985 to discourage the heckling. Despite not entirely stopping the jokes, she did manage to reduce the chatter for this week. So stash your jokes, books, and let's lead the way. So with this, we shall end today's commemorations. Thank you everyone for watching us. And as part of World Zoonosis Day, today we have with us Mr. Pradeep, animal activist and also animal welfare, human advocate who is working on animal welfare. So he would be presenting on zoonosis today. So we welcome you, Pradeep. You can unmute yourself, start your video and presentation. Pradeep, can you hear me? Can unmute yourself. Pradeep, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Right. You can start your presentation.
Yes, sir. One minute, sir. A very good evening, one and all. On behalf of World Zoonosis Day, I welcome you all to this webinar. So I hope my screen is visible to everyone.
Yes, Ma, you can go to first slide and make it full screen if possible.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Now you are on the first slide.
Yes.
And now it's full screen. Please continue.
Thanks a lot, sir. So today I'm going to talk about the zoonosis, the peril of pandemics. So before going to the presentation, uh, we will know about the importance of zoonosis day. So every year, Zoonosis Day is observed annually on July 6th. So it raises awareness about the zoonotic diseases and infections that spread between animals to humans. At the same time, this date also commemorates Louis Pasteur, a French biologist, has successfully administered the first rabies vaccine to a child on July 6, 1885, marking a milestone in disease prevention. So these days, Louis Pasteur has administered first rabies vaccine for a child who has had a dog bite, and that's what been successful. And so every year on the same day, we mark the Zoonosis Day. We remember the Louis Pasteur's contribution for this rabies vaccine. And moving further ahead, what are zoonotic diseases? Zoonotic or zoonosis diseases are caused by harmful germs. Uh, these are bacterial, virus, parasites, and fungi. So these germs cause different types of illnesses in people. Basically, these acts as uh, a parasite. This acts as a medium. They spread to the animals, and at the same time, from animals to they spread to from us. So they act as a medium in specific. So there are 175 zoonotic diseases. So uh, some of them are swine flu, rabies, COVID-19. We have been knowing Ebola, Lassa fever, COVID tuberculosis, avian flu influenza, and many other such. So types of zoonotic diseases. We have classified the type of zoonotic diseases as three categories. One is emerging zoonotic diseases. So these are actually newly appeared in populations or existed previously, increasing incident of geographical range. And at the same time, uh, some diseases are not highly lethal and they mostly spread, but however, some are emerging diseases have an enormous impact, like Ebola, HIV, AIDS, and COVID-19 are well-known examples for emerging zoonotic diseases, particularly harmful to human health and the economy. Because COVID-19, we have seen that 2 years we have been shut in confined to our homes, and the whole economy across the world has been affected. So, so we talk about the outbreak, like Ebola outbreak from 2013 to 2016 in Guinea and Liberia and Sierra and Leone. So it reported about 11,300 deaths, to around 11,323 deaths. And it cost for the economy was about US dollars, that means 2.8 billion economic losses has been. And the other thing, which was Zika virus outbreak, which was happened between the years between the period from 2015 to 2016 in America. 1 in 7 babies of pregnant women have infected with Zika virus develops a neurological problem, and when the cost for the lifetime cost, which was about uh, more than the affected case. So we talk about the epidemic diseases. These are typically occur intermittently and mostly in domestic regions. So, for example, anthrax, leishmaniasis, and Rift Valley fever. Epidemic diseases are often triggered by the events such as climate variability. Like if we talk about the any floods, any extreme weather events and famines and climate changes the events have been happening. So such situations and circumstances, these epidemic diseases will occur. Uh, However, the overall health burden is much less than when compared to the neglected zoonosis. At the same time, epidemic zoonosis cause shocks to food production and other systems because floods and other natural calamities, which often causes a lot of uh, damage, a lot of effect to the not only to the public life at the same time, it causes a lot of cultural shocks and at the same time causes damage to the food production and, and significantly uh, reduce the resilience of the affected impoverished communities. So moving on to the neglected zoonotic disease, third one, it's mostly like the epidemic disease. It is also domestic origin and it is also greater or lesser degree in certain populations. Mostly these neglected zoonotic diseases occurs in mostly poorer populations and at the same time there is a likely the detection when we talk about the surveillance mechanism for the neglected zoonotic disease. It is like it's not that rapid and there is even it's not that advanced since they have a poor detection and and at the same time the recognition and here the prioritization of the researchers or policymakers they have to do. If we talk about the neglected zoonotic disease, one such common thing is pig tapeworm. It is actually affected by 50 million people globally, and 80% of them are living in the uh, developing countries, and it more than US dollars. It costs around 150 million annual cost. So, and move on to the next slide. So till now we discussed about the zoonosis day importance and at the same time what is zoonosis and also types of zoonotic diseases. We talk about the connectivity and complexity. So why does like zoonotic disease is emerging? So the links between the wider environment. We talk about the wider environment means environment, biodiversity, emerging diseases are complex. While wildlife is the most common source of emerging human diseases, domestic animals are also personal sources of transmission of pathways, amplifiers of zoonotic diseases. Like when you talk about the wildlife, nowadays due to the lot of illegal wildlife trade and also the transportation of wild animals, so the consumption of bushmeat and other things, so these are actually becoming carriers for zoonotic diseases. At the same time, domesticated animals. When we talk about domesticated animals, which especially livestock. So a lot of the times we talk about the farm animals. So earlier days, there is not much consumption of the meat, but a rapid urbanization and at the same time, the demand for the meat has been increased. So whenever the demand for the food has been increased, so the production systems are also being changed. So these animals have been kept in a very unhygienic conditions. At the same time, they have been kept in a very cramped condition. When you take example of a hen, so mostly the hen we talk about it's been confined to a small A4 size sheet of a paper. So here, the condition of the hen, it is not able to move up his wings, not able to do its natural behaviors like dusting, foraging. So the what happens is every time the food and everything, so it's the waste, everything has been there only in the A4 size sheet of paper. So what happens at the time? So the animal waste is there. It has been mixed up with a lot of antibiotics because in farm animals, a lot of the food has been whatever the feed has been used, they have been given a lot of antibiotics. So these uh, animal waste mix up with a lot of toxins, which you talk about a lot of ammonia, nitrous oxide gas. So a lot of the toxins have been there. So which actually also responsible for the infections. So at the same time, when we talk about the interconnectedness, such as air and water quality, so these animal waste has been released to the nearby water bodies. So ultimately, it affects the health of the people who are living there, who are vulnerable. Like they are actually dependent on the uh, water, especially the river water. So or any pond. So what happens is these animal waste get deposited in the water, so it affects the BOD level of the water, and the water quality gets diminution. At the same time, it affects the physical health and well-being of the humans. So, so main connectivity is because of the improper animal welfare measures. At the same time, wildlife, illegal wildlife trade. So these are the main challenges posed by the current and future infectious diseases, including zoonosis. So how the transmission of the disease, how the transmission of a zoonosis disease happen to animals? So these actually, there are seven human mediated factors. These are the driving the emergence of zoonotic diseases. The first one is increasing human demand for animal protein. And the second is unsustainable agricultural intensification. The third is increased use and exploitation of wildlife. The fourth is unsustainable utilization of natural resources accelerated by urbanization, land use, a change in extractive industries, increased travel and transportation, changes in the sixth one is changes in food supply and climate change. So we will talk about the one by one in brief. The first, when we talk about increasing in the human demand for animal protein. So as we talk about, as I discussed, like the demand for the consumption of animal foods has been increased. Not only the uh, low income countries, it also has been increased from the starting from the high income countries. The change in the consumption of animal foods, when you compare to the last 4 decades, there has been a massive change in it. So if we talk about the Southeast Asia has been a rapid consumption since 1960s. The share of the daily food supply of the proteins of animal products has been doubled to 21% from fish. It has increased by half of the 15%. The share of the total calories from both fish and animal products doubled total percent of the supply. Meanwhile, South Asia has been also increased the animal consumption, but not as strong. Sub-Saharan Africa has also followed the pattern. Southern Asia and also has been less more. The per capita increase when we compare to the protein consumption of animal protein in low income countries has been significant growth in the population. So now why it is happening is because as the urbanization has been increased and people income levels has been increased. So what why the urbanization and people income has increased? So why the animal protein why the demand for animal protein has been increased? Because people started to look for a new taste. So ultimately, they started for adopting the more of protein based like meat and dairy. The consumption has been increased. So most of them are the together the factors have been strong growth in the meat production. So the production of the meat is not produced in the like not in the pastoral farming mechanism. Mostly these have been industrialized. So so what happens is when the animals have been kept in industrialization farm mechanisms, so first thing is their welfare measures have been ignored, and there is a lack of biosecurity measures. So ultimately, there is a disease transmission mechanism from because these animals are kept in a cramped condition, one over the other. So at the same time, when you compare to the animal protein consumption, earlier days, the livestock products consumption has been increased rapidly, and this is one of the driver for the industrialized animal agriculture. And the second one is unsustainable agriculture intensification. As we discussed about the increased demand for animal foods, the intensification of animal production, industrialized animal agriculture and factory farming. So there is a larger number of animals have been bred for higher levels, and at the same time, when we talk about the pigs, so pigs are kept in a gested, they have been kept in gestation crates. So where there is a transmission of swine flu due to the lack of physical distancing. Even when you talk about the hens or any other livestock, there has been lack of physical distancing between the animals, and it is easy to for the disease prone. So at the same time, when we talk about poorer countries, there are additional risk factors in livestock production because they are very close to the cities, and there is lack of biosecurity measures, and basic animals husbandry practices are often inadequate, and the animal waste, as I mentioned, it has been poorly managed, and the excessive use of antimicrobial drugs uh, used to mask poor condition practices. Since 1940, agricultural intensification measures such as dams, irrigation practices, factory farms has been associated with more than 25%. And the infectious diseases have emerged in humans. Moreover, one third of the croplands using animal feed, and these are actually responsible for driving deforestation. If we talk about the Amazon forest, so Amazon forests are called a lungs of earth, and now today it's facing a lot of deforestation and other multitudes of problems because one of the major reason is animal protein. So which is causing the one of the because more and more land is required for raising of these animals in especially livestock. They have been raised in factory farm conditions. So which is one of the reason for deforestation. Increased use and exploitation of wildlife. As I said in my previous slides, so there is an exploitation of wildlife, which is uh, one of the reason for zoonotic diseases, such as harvesting wild animals. Especially these animals are raised for wild meat, sometimes called as bushmeat, source of micronutrients, and most of the time these animals are raised by the people, especially vulnerable section of the society, to raise the money uh, by and also by selling the meat. And we have the recreational hunting and consumption of wildlife, and most of them they believe as a status symbol, uh, and some of them as like consumption of these animals, that to wildlife meat is fresh and natural and traditional and safe. They believe it, but it is not it. So trade in live animals for recreational use. When we talk about live animals in recreation, such as pets, zoos, and we talk about research and medical tests. The use of animals parts for decorative and like decorative when you talk about wild animals like ivory, so and tigers, so many of them medicinal and other commercial products. So in general, use and trade in live and dead animals can lead to increase close contact for animals and people throughout the supply chain, which increases the risk of zoonotic emergence. In some regions, as human population and wealth has increased, there also increased the demand of wild animals and their products. In West Africa, for example, wildlife for food has been increased over last 10 years, and infrastructure development facilitate wildlife exploitation because whenever there is a new project has been proposed by the government or any other developmental activity or any housing society has been proposed, most of the time a reserved forest has been utilized by the government, certain governments, because a reserve forest or any other forest land, so they are converting this land into uh, which is depend. Most of the animals are there. So what are happening is they have been converting this land into commercial use. So when that happens, these wild animals, they come into the contact with the human habitat. So at that time, there is a much more chances. I mean, there will be a transmission of diseases, which will happen. And this is a pathogenic flow of wildlife, human livestock, human interface. You can see that uh, there is a lot of interconnectedness. We can see that first and foremost in this is livestock, and after that wildlife connected with, and then we have the peri-domestic wildlife, and after that humans. So the everything, every chain of it, the biosphere and everything, which is interconnected. So moving further ahead, we have the other one is unsustainable utilization of natural resources. As we said that a lot, the accelerated urbanization and land usage, rapid urbanization, and when there is a lockout of urbanization is there, there is a what happens is in order to manage urbanization and all, there is unplanned with poor infrastructure, which creates novel and diverse contacts among the wildlife, livestock, and people. The greater movement of people and animals, the trade that is associated with accelerated urbanization, often provides favorable grounds for the emergence of infectious diseases, including zoonosis. So when you talk about it, when there is a lot of urbanization is happening, so we need to have build the infrastructure also. So where we can build the infrastructure, like any other government or any other, they started to utilize the nearby forest area. So what happens is when there is the destruction of any other forest and all, the animals which are dependent on that, so they will come close contact with the human life, human habitats. So at the same time, whenever they have been trade with these animals trade with the urbanization and all, so there is a favorable emergence of the new infectious diseases, including zoonosis. For example, irrigation system encourages vector-borne disease, borne zoonosis to spread deforestation and fragment of the ecosystems and wildlife habitats, and encourage contacts at the human livestock wildlife ecosystem interface, and increase human settlements uh, and fencing, constrained herding, and migratory move of both domesticated and wild animals. So when you talk about it, earlier we used to where the forest were there and animals were there. There is no much more problem. When there is a human settlement over there, when there is like a reserve forest have been converted into a what we call as a shop, like any of the housing society or any proposed government proposed land, and most of the time the reserve forest area which is converted into cultivable land also sometimes. What it happens is at the time when these forest area has been converted in it, so what happens generally if we talk about the cultivable land, farmers will cultivate a lot of commercial crops such as sugarcane, cashew nuts, and everything. So which undoubtedly attract the wild animals nearby. So like elephants and also langurs, they come to the close contact to the human habitats, and this increases the human animal conflict. At the same time, this is also affect the risk of the infectious diseases. So this is one of the main problem. And one second. So other thing is increase use unsustainable, as you mentioned, increase travel and transportation. As we have seen that nowadays the world has become very small, and we have the connectivity. We have air connectivity, water connectivity, and we have roadways also. So thanks to the invention, everything is very connected. But at the same time, what happens is there is a risk of expedition, especially when these animals have been traveled. They don't have a biosecurity measures, lack of biosecurity measures, and there is no some. Then normally we have the checks, which we call as every border, when you cross any border or any other area, there will be checks to ensure that these they have been as per the protocol and all. So there is a lack of that checks, at the same time lack of biosecurity measures. So at the same time we are going to the one country to other country. So like if you see that we seen in news also with COVID-19 or any other diseases, when a person visits to other country, he may be a risk of prone to the infection. So because of that also we can get zoonotic diseases. Changes in the food supply. Uh, we have seen that as there is more and more demand for meat and also dairy products has been increasing. So undoubtedly, this has also increased the risk of transmission of zoonotic disease. And finally, we have the climate change. Climate change is a driver for not only zoonotic diseases, but many other multitudes of regions. There is a lot of change in the uneven weather patterns. There is also problem for the vector-borne diseases, and at the same time we have a lot of many other problems. So all in all, I want to say one thing is this zoonotic days, if you want to prevent the diseases means if you have a pet animals, it's a mandatory to ensure that they got all the necessary vaccinations, because their health, if you are protecting the animal health, this ultimately leads to human health. So with that, I I'm ending the presentation. So now that if you have any questions, you can feel free to ask me. And thank you, Ravinder sir, for this wonderful opportunity.
Thank you, Pradeep, for your insightful presentation on this wonderful occasion of World Zoonosis Day. And it is very important, like you have mentioned, with the statistics and the various aspects. To we need to maintain not only just human health, but also plant and animal health, and live with harmony. See, without a healthy environment, we cannot be healthy. And environment consists of not just human beings. We have plants, animals, insects, birds. So unless and until our environment is healthy, we can't be healthy. So I think is very much conveyed with various other aspects being dealt in the presentation. So congratulations. We're wishing you all the success for your future endeavors.
Thank you, sir.
Parts. So we request everyone to quickly fill the feedback form, and we congratulate each and everyone for joining us on this wonderful occasions. And once again, thank Mr. Pradeep for his presentation on today's occasion. See you all tomorrow at the same time with the same joining link with different commemorations. Take care. Good night.